Hello everyone, welcome back to this course. In this lecture, we will dive into a core concept of Node.js, that is modules. This will be a hands-on session where we will not only learn about theory, but also write and execute some real JavaScript code. Let's quickly get started with that. To begin with, we will need a Node.js project setup to be done on our local machine. So let's initialize a Node.js project in our machine. But in order to do that, we will be using an additional tool today to initialize a new Node.js project, and that tool is going to be npm. Well, you might have heard about this npm tool even before. So this npm stands for Node Package Manager. It actually started as a way to download and manage dependencies of the packages that are used inside a Node.js project. It is very much the same as pip for Python programming language, which is also a package manager for Python. So we shall use this tool to create an empty Node.js project by issuing a simple command called npm init. So if I say npm init here, this command is sufficient in order to initialize a new Node.js project for us. And optionally, we can add a while flag to allow npm to initialize the project with default settings. If you wish to initialize a project with custom settings, you may omit this while flag from here, and you will be prompted for certain questions related to your project configuration in the terminal itself. As of now, I shall go with the default settings and run this command. All right, so you could see that it has created a package.json file in the current directory, and this file is going to track all the external Node.js packages we will use in this project. In addition to that, there is some other information that you might want to take a look at. For example, the name of the project, the main file of the project, which is mentioned to be index.js here. So this is the place where you typically provide the name of the entry point of your project or the application. And index.js is a common practice for naming the entry point in a Node.js project. As a developer, you can name the entry point of file pretty much anything, as nothing is preventing you from doing so. But as I said before, it is a common practice, and when other developers take a look at a new project, typically when you are working in a collaborative environment, they typically look for a file called index.js in the project, considering that is going to be the entry point of that particular project. Okay, so let us quickly create a new file called index.js and write some JavaScript code here to check if we are able to execute JavaScript at all here or not. So I would say console.log hello world, and I will try to execute it. To execute this code, all you need to do is to type node and the file name you wish to run your code from. Okay, so here what will I do is I will first clear this terminal and I would say node, and after that I will have to specify the file name that I wish to run here. So I would say index.js. The moment I do that, it says hello world, and this is the exact same thing that I expected from this particular code that I had written in my index.js file. Now, there is actually another way to run Node.js project apart from the one that we just used. If we come back to our project, the package.json file, and take a look at the script section here. Currently, there is just one script that is test and which is doing something. The significance of this script section is that if you specify a key value pair here, you can use the key name along with the npm tool to execute the instruction you provide as a value to that particular key. For instance, if I add a key named start here, so let's say I add a key called start here, and the value to that can be anything. So I will have to add a comma here. All right, if I create a new key here called start and I assign it some value, say node index.js, and post doing that, I shall come back to my terminal, and here this time, instead of directly specifying the command node index.js, what will I do is I will make use of npm tool, and I would say npm please run a script named start. The moment I do that, it is going to do the exact same thing that node index.js was doing, because this npm run start will trigger the actions that you would have mentioned in this start key value in the script section of your package.json. All right, so from the next time onwards, for running a Node.js project, we will prefer mentioning the launching command to be put into the script section, so that we can always make use of the npm tool in order to start our application or run our Node.js project. All right, now let us understand what modules are in Node.js. Well, the concept of modules is not something specific to Node.js. The idea is, when we work on production grade applications, we write a lot of code. I repeat, we write a lot of code to implement a solution or say a software. Now, if you think about it, writing so much code in a single file is certainly not what you would want to do, and neither is it recommended. So what happens in such scenarios is we tend to divide the entire code base into a bunch of files, or you could say modules, and we call it modular programming. To understand that in more detail, let us see a practical example of this. Let's say I will implement a function to compute the factorial of a given number as a parameter. So I shall head back to my index.js file, and I will delete this existing code that I had, and I will implement a new function, say factorial. All it will do is it is going to say accept input called n, and I shall use the recursion technique. If n is going to be 0, I would straight away return 1. Otherwise, I am going to return n multiplied by factorial n minus 1. All right. So this is the function that I have created here. Now I will invoke this function. And in order to invoke a function, all I will do is I would say factorial, and let's say I will invoke it with a parameter called 5. And let me clear the terminal and run this. So, okay. One thing we missed out is we didn't, log or printed the output. So I shall use console.log here, and I will put this function call in a console.log. Now, if I will do it again, so I am getting 120 as the answer here, which is absolutely correct, right? So we are getting the expected result here. So far, so good. But now think about a situation when you are working on a big project and you define all your utility functions at a common place. Then you will have to somehow import those functions into the file you want to use those functions in. And how would you do something of that sort in Node.js? Well, we will use a special function called require for that purpose. Let me show you. Firstly, let me quickly create a new file here. Let's say utils.js. And I will move this implementation of factorial function from this index.js file to this utils.js. Okay. And now, coming back to my index.js, firstly, I will remove this console.log calling the factorial function. Okay. Now, just like we use hash include in languages like C or CPP, I will import this factorial function in my index.js file using a special function that I named before, which is require. So I will use the require function and provide the name of the module which I wish to import here. Now, here are two things. You probably want to import an external package or dependency that you have installed, or you want to import some local files itself. For now, I am interested in importing a local utility file itself because I wish to import a factorial function which is defined in utils.js, and I want to access it in my current file, which is index.js. So I will provide the name of the file, something like require utils.js. Okay. After doing that, what will I do is I will assign it to some variable, and let's name the variable to be say utils itself. Nothing is preventing us from using any other name here too. But since we are actually trying to import something from the utils, I prefer to name it with the name utils itself. All right. Now, one thing to note here is that if you were to import an external package, you will not use this dot and this / here, and you will directly specify the name of the module or the package name. And now, after doing this, if I try to call the factorial function from here, let's see, console.log factorial, and let's say I will say 5. Now, the moment I do that, so it starts giving me an error saying factorial is not defined. Let's try to understand what just happened here. We successfully imported the utils module, and still we are unable to access this factorial function. Now, many of you might be thinking that we can call this by providing the reference to the utils variable while invoking. Let's try that as well. So I would say utils.factorial. All right. So I will clear up the terminal, and once again, I will hit the same command, but no changes in the output. The error still remains the same. It is still unable to find that factorial function. Now, to debug this, let's try to find out what this utils variable actually contains. So all I will do is, instead of saying utils.factorial or anything else, I would say console.log utils itself, and let's see what is going to be the output. So as you can see, the output here is actually an empty object. Right. So the problem here is that importing a module alone won't allow us to access the functions that are defined in that particular module. We will also have to explicitly tell which functions need to be exported in the exported module. So I will come back to the utils.js files here, and I will have to specify the exports. And while specifying those exports, I will have to make sure that the factorial function is included in the exports of this particular module. How do I do that? Well, we shall use a very common syntax like module dot exports equals to something. So I would say factorial here. Now, once I do that and I come back to my index.js, and this time if I try to execute this file as it is, that means I wish to know that what exists in my utils variable as of now. So you could see that this factorial function has now shown up. All right, so post exporting this function factorial from our utils.js file, we will have to import it in index.js, which we have already done. But now if I will invoke this with the parameter 5, and I will again say npm run start, this time, okay, I will have to save it. And once I do that again, so you could see that I am getting a output called 120 here, right? So we just got access to the function that we have defined in the utils.js in some other module or in some other file of our Node.js project. So far, so good. Now, what's next? The question is that what if I have to export a bunch of functions from this utils.js file itself? Say I implement another which say is going to accept an argument and return the square of the number that was provided to the function as input. So let me head back to my utils.js and let's create another function called square. Once I say square and say it is going to accept a number, all it will do is it will simply return n times n multiplied by n. Fine. Now what will I do is I will copy this exact same statement, and this time I would also try to export this particular function, right? Module.exports and square. Right. Now what will happen is if I come back here and I say utils 5, and if I do npm run start, so this time what happened was I am getting the square of the input that I provided to utils, which is implicitly taking the square function. But what happened there is initially it was giving us the output of 120, but when we added this another statement called module.exports equals to square. What did it do is it starts giving us the square of the input number that was provided to it. Okay, so what actually happened here is we just lost the access to the factorial function. We did got the access to the square function here, but in addition to that, we lost the access to the factorial function here. Okay, so what has happened here is this export of square function actually overridden the value of the exports of this particular module, which was initially factorial, and now it has been overwritten with the value square. Now, how can we solve this problem? Well, there is nothing difficult. What we can do here is we can simply wrap this thing in an object. So I would say factorial and square. Now, once I do that, I will come back to my index.js. This time, I will have to specifically define or explicitly tell that which function I wish to invoke here. So if I say utils.factorial, and after that, I say npm run start. So I am getting this output. But in addition to that, if I wish to call the square function as well, I wish to call the square function with the same input, say 5 itself. And this time, if I call it, I am getting two different outputs this time, 120 and 25. Why? Because I am able to access both these functions, factorial as well as square, in my index.js, which is a different module. And I am importing these functions from utils.js into this particular module. Okay. All right, great. So we just learned how we can import and export members from one module to another. Now, let's see one more way of doing the exact same thing. That is, we will see another way of exporting the functions from a module. So instead of doing this module.exports, what we can do is we can also use a syntax which says exports dot something, or you could say a property name, which is equals to the function that you wish to export with this particular property. So if you say exports.factorial equals to factorial. Now, what will happen is I should be able to access this factorial function here. And if I again run this, so you could see I am getting this output. And if I come back to my utils and I add exact same statement, but this time, instead of saying factorial, I should say square equals to square. All right. The moment I do that and come back to my index.js file and again hit this command called npm run start, this time I am getting the exact same output once again. But one more interesting thing here is that you can actually change the names. No matter if your function was called with name factorial while implementing it, but if you want to export it with the name fact, that is absolutely fine. If you want to export a function named square with the say name called sq say ua, that's all. I mean, this is just demo. So if I come back here and I replace this factorial with fact and square with squa, and if I run this file once again, so you could see there is no difference in the output at all. We are still able to access that. But what will happen is if I will try to replace this fact with factorial, I should start getting an error because factorial is not what we are exporting from that module. It is fact. Right? So if I show you, it is saying utils.factorial is not a function, but utils.fact is indeed a function here, and that's why we are getting that in the output. All right. So this was a simple introduction about modules and how to manage exports and imports in a Node.js project. So let us summarize what we have learned so far. Node.js allows modular development using require and module.exports. We firstly used module.exports in order to export a set of properties from an exported module, and then we can use require function in the imported module to get access to those utilities that you have defined from the exported module. You can split logic into reusable files for better maintainability. There are two common ways to export functionality. One is module.exports directly or via the exports shorthand. We have seen both of them. In real world applications, when you will work with the hundreds of such modules like routers, controllers, external services, utility functions, etc., etc., this modular programming becomes very vital in such scenarios. So understanding how to structure your code using modules is essential for clean and scalable development. In the upcoming lectures, we will look at importing external modules such as Express, .env, chords, etc. But the fundamental concepts behind importing all of these things actually remain the same. So that's all for today's lecture on Node.js modules. In the next session, we will take a deeper look into how we can create an HTTP server using the built-in module HTTP in Node.js. This will give us a foundational understanding before we transition to using frameworks like Express.js. So that's all for this lecture. Thanks for watching.